It's just water.
Yeah, I was lost in it.
Everybody rise to the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call meeting to order, roll call.
Okay, Mayor Westergaard.
Yes.
Frank.
Yes.
Mulder.
Yes.
Stankin.
Yes.
Boltman.
Yep.
Beckman.
Yes. Must be.
Must be.
Is it you?
It wasn't mine. Public forum, do we have anybody here for public forum? Consent agenda, any additions or corrections? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Second. Roll call?
Mulder.
Yes.
Boltman.
Yep.
Beckman.
Yep.
Frank.
Yes.
Stankin.
Yes.
I'll open the public hearing on the proposed budget. Do we have any public input?
No, I've not heard any. You know, the items in the council packet there show the what was published as far as the notice of public hearing, and then the revenues and expenditures by fund are on the next page, page 5, and then page 6 shows projected fund balances then at the end of this current fiscal year and then at the end of the proposed budget year. Page 7 and 8 shows year 1 of the capital improvement plan, so if it was listed on year 1 of the capital improvement plan, it was included in the budget. And then page 9 is actually the resolution that gets approved to certify the taxes.
We'll close the public hearing on the proposed budget. Resolution 2210 is a resolution approving the budget.
Make the motion to approve.
Second,
I'll second it.
roll call.
Mulder.
Yes.
Stankin.
Yes.
Boltman.
Yep.
Beckman.
Yep.
Frank.
Yes.
Okay, we have Lauren here. She's going to talk to us about the comprehensive plan update. If you have anything to add.
Do you want me to?
You just, oh, we gotta have at least a little spiel.
A little spiel? I mean, how little you want?
I'd like to be home before midnight.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was fine, thank you very much.
There you go. So basically, we developed this over the last year. I met with the steering committee. Sorry, there's a post there. We met with the steering committee about monthly to develop the comprehensive plan. Each month, we went over a different chapter and kind of talked about the goals. We sent out a community survey April, May. Got responses into July. We even surveyed some of the campers to see what businesses they frequent, what they would like to see in the community, what would make them travel. I mean, because even some of the ones that we interviewed traveled, I think, an hour and a half at least to camp. So we were kind of interested in what led them to come here to camp. So we did a bunch of public input. Each month we went through the chapter, kind of talked about goals, like I said. Talked about some land use. The biggest thing in there is the implementation plan. This is kind of the project list to go over for the next 10 years. I don't think anything we put in there is way out of whack. The hazard chapter is completely from your FEMA approved plan to add to see. Other than that, do you guys have any questions?
That was very well put together.
Yes, it was.
You said you sent out a survey, who did that all go to? The whole public or
It was, yes,
or
we had.
selected people?
No, there was 174 responses from the community. We had put it was an online survey, and we had said if they wanted paper copies that we could make those available, but I don't
think we did.
I think I got one paper copy back. The rest of those were online responses. We had put it on the Region 12 Facebook page, we put it on the Lakeview Facebook page, people shared it on their own personal pages. I'm trying to think
Put
what
it in the
else.
newsletter and.
Yep, in the newsletter.
Maybe in my newsletter,
Yeah,
LBCC.
so it got out to quite a few people. And there was a wide variety of responses in there, so, yeah.
Sounds good, thanks, Lauren.
Yeah,
Okay,
Appreciate it.
thanks, guys.
Thanks for all your hard work.
yes.
Yeah,
that
thank you
looked like
for
a lot of
making it easy.
I will be here in 10 years when you do it again.
You say that now.
Resolution 2211 is approving that comprehensive plan. A motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second,
Roll call.
Beckman,
Yes.
Muller,
yes.
Stankham,
Yes.
Boltman.
Yep.
Frank.
Yes,
Okay, we have to make it official, the location, project, design of the pickle court. Pickleball.
Pickleball. Pickleball.
Pickleball court.
Pickleball.
Yes.
So really, a couple of goals maybe for the night. And the first thing is to discuss location and finalize location. When we got together before that last city council meeting, everybody really seemed on board with the idea of having the pickleball court in Speaker Park. So this would be directly south of the basketball court, directly to the east of the splash pad. Now, Sandy has kind of laid that out in a visual in here too, on page 11. And so that would be basically the proposed location. Now the thing to note about that is that it's significantly smaller than what the white flags would have been out there. So if you look at page 12, and Sandy or somebody want to talk through what that design looks like then?
Yeah, I think our first pickleball court that I made, that great big layout one, it had 13-foot apron. And they, after talking to the girls and some of the guys, they decided they just needed a 4-foot apron, so that's what's made it much smaller. It would sit 2 courts side by side. They would both be running north and south. And so this is considerably smaller scale than what we were looking at.
price wise, you think it's gonna come down also off the 100? Cause I was worried if it, before it's finished, if it exceeded the 100, where the funding was gonna come from.
Right. Well, I think what the, and I'm speaking out of turn, Tony. I think what they're doing is, once we get the location taken care of and approved, they have more fundraising to do. They haven't even begun
Yeah.
to fundraise. I've made all my calls that they've asked me to, and it's just waiting for people to get back to you. Fort Dodge, Iowa Fencing was supposed to call me today, I never heard back from them. The Denison Midwest Turf and the painting people, today was the day and I never heard from them. So, I made my calls, I'm waiting to hear from them, because they want the project cost as well.
I got a goofy question. I
If
see
it's
we
about
got-
my drawing.
No, I see we got the two gates on the one end, and I don't play pickleball, and it's a 4-foot fence. Does the ball ever go over the fence?
Occasionally,
Okay.
but
So
not
do we,
very often.
I'm just asking if
Very
we need
seldom.
gates somewhere else?
No, that's their entrance gate just to come in, because this is off the street.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, so
so I'm
here's
just
the basketball
asking,
court.
yeah, so I'm
The
just
gates,
asking.
Oh,
the
I get
gates
what
are
he's
the same
saying.
height as the fence.
Yeah, I'm
But what
saying
he's
that
saying
there's
is, what if the ball goes out on
On the
this
other
end?
Then we'll
How
just
we,
run around.
you're gonna run around and go get it, that's.
Okay, that's what I'm asking, or if we should have extra gates over there is all I'm asking.
I can see you guys jumping the fence.
Hey, we're pretty good.
I mean, they'll have nice little coverings on top, you gotta have these padded little
Yeah.
things on top, but great point, I never thought of
It
that.
doesn't go out very often. In fact, at Sac City, you'll notice they have high fences on each end.
9 foot.
We would like to not do that because of the aesthetics of the park.
Right,
They're
Um,
trying to save the view.
We'll leave that a little bit of help from the fencing committee or from the fencing companies, but we would like to keep it lower. It's so rare that a ball goes out that we don't feel like it's an issue.
and the only reason I was asking, because when I was down in Arizona 2 weeks ago, you know, they had the big tall fencing around it with the wind block things, and that would block it, so I asked somebody about that, said no. The 4-foot high fence is great, I just was worried about, shouldn't say worried, wondering about having a gate on the other side, so you could go out, I don't know how often a ball goes out there. I need to learn how to play pickleball so I can figure it out.
Actually, we have more problems with a gate being left open or not quite shutting tight, and then it goes out more there than it does any other.
Or good
Okay.
quality closures, the closures on the stack courts are not the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the only reason I was asking about the gate stuff, so.
Great question.
I wouldn't wanna walk all the way around.
I mean, there wouldn't be a problem to having more gates, I don't know what, depending on what the cost is, I guess.
And I think if you guys, we should have brought that old packet back. That other packet had the 9-foot fencing. And, I mean, it was thousands of dollars more. And also when we priced everything, fencing was 50% up. And when I talked to those guys last week, it has come down. So we greatly thank the fencing. The fencing was like the court, it was ridiculous.
Also, on funding, I've written one $50,000 grant to Wellmark for a $25,000 grant to ARP and a $25,000 grant to Prairie Meadows. And we don't find out for another month or two, so.
Okay.
If we get one, we'll be,
Right,
okay.
yeah.
We need the location
We
approved
have
so that we
one
can.
25 now, right?
Pardon me?
You have one $25,000
Right,
grant,
Right,
right? Yeah.
well, and 25 from the council, 25 from LCTV, that Scott.
Right.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we have 50,000 right now.
go ahead, Vicki, I'm sorry.
We would just like to nail down the location from the council so we could start fundraising. You know, it's hard to fundraise, and if people ask you questions, you don't have an answer, so we just haven't, Diane can talk about what we plan to do with fundraising.
Sure.
I introduced 9 of the young ones here in the community to pickleball this afternoon upstairs at City Hall.
We have future players.
That will use our courts. I think what we're planning to do is a series of raffles, and we're going to have donations from community members as well. It seems to me that if 10 grand can be raised, boom, just like that, for the digitization of old Lakeview Resort issues, I think we'll be able to raise funds for pickleball courts. I think we're planning a presence at the Sip and Sample this summer, and then I think we're gonna have a raffle table decorated at each of the Stone Pier concerts, so. That's what we have in mind right now.
Sounds good.
But it's a little, like, it's a little hard to ask for money until we have, something established.
We just would like to go for 2 courts and not 1.
Right.
Yeah. I think they're gonna get
The way to
used, I
go.
think it's a.
Oh, they will.
It'd be
It's a
better to
fast,
get it all done
it's
at
a
once.
fast growing sport.
I'll make a motion to use the property down at.
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Okay, Wolf,
Yes.
Muller,
Yes.
Stankin.
Yes.
Beckman.
Yep.
Frank.
Yes.
Was this the scope of the project you were looking for?
I, do you wanna discuss the scope of the project then too? And mainly just the notion of being able to prepare plans for a project that includes 2 courts. So I would like to be preparing that this way and proceeding out to bid on this, and with the hope that construction occurs, this summer and into the fall would be ideal. But we would like to proceed with the project design and proceed to bid, understanding that we haven't raised all the money yet. Okay, any concerns with proceeding that way?
No, my only question is in this drawing that we do have, there's a tree that's gonna be removed, right?
Yeah.
Are we gonna replant a tree right away, or do they get that going? We're cutting a lot of trees down without planting trees.
Yep. Well,
We got
Wait for
20 of them coming.
is that what we ended up with, 20 or
It's
so?
gonna be
Okay.
probably 20, we kinda decided not to do spring delivery on the trees. I think everything is so dry that we feel like we're not gonna get very good quality. So I feel like it's every fall we get them. So we definitely always need a place to put trees. And we
So
can
you-
put them in the
yeah,
park.
yeah,
That's
well,
a simple,
it-
that's
it,
plenty.
It likely would be fall tree plantings again this year.
Yeah,
We've had actually pretty good success with fall tree plantings as far as
Yes.
getting trees to survive.
Everyone okay with that?
Yep. I'm gonna go ahead and work with the committee about a project design and get it get it out to bid.
Okay, resolution 2212 is granting the zoning variance to Black Label property.
Yeah, you betcha. So this Black Label LLC is Dyson Beckman up on the highway. Look at page 15. That, the red box shows you the location of where the proposed variance is, okay? Tyson's new building doesn't show in this aerial photo, but it would be in that area to the left. And then to the right of the red box is actually the access for Jacobson's to get back to their new property. Okay, so and the request for variance then is that the lot would be 90 feet wide. They would propose to put up an 80 by 60 foot building. The 80-foot frontage though, so that there'd basically be 5 feet on each side, 2 foot overhang on this, so it ends up being a 3 foot setback. So the code for commercial areas has a 10-foot side yard setback. And now, for years and years, there was no side yard setback in the commercial zone. We established this downtown business district commercial zone several years ago, and that still does have the no setback. When they did that, then the planning and zoning had implemented setbacks though for the other commercial zones. So the commercial zones off of Main Street. So it is 10 feet on the side, 20 foot in the front or average of the neighbors, and 10 feet in the back. I don't know, Dale wanted to have a little discussion about that general topic there too. But as far as the variance goes, the Board of Adjustment has issued the variance, and the council will be asked to approve that resolution, or you could remand it back to the board.
I make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Roll call.
Okay, Frank,
Yes.
Beckman,
Yes.
Waltman,
Yep.
Steinkamp,
Yes.
Mulder.
Yes.
Okay, resolution 2213 is,
Can we have that little discussion on the
we'll talk about the setbacks.
on the setbacks?
You wanna do it now, or are you gonna do it later in the, under 15? That's
Either
why I
way.
was waiting.
Yes, go ahead.
Which we'll do it now.
Okay.
Since we've been discussing it, but yeah.
I was at that planning and zoning, or that variance
Board of Adjustment.
Board of Adjustments meeting, Mary, thank you. And we got to talking about it, you know, with the limited space we have in town for buildings like this, and then we have a 10-foot setback where you can have a 4-foot setback in a residential, I think makes no sense whatsoever. And I don't know why, I asked Scott why the planning and zoning changed that, he didn't have an answer for me back then, what the reasoning was behind it. I just don't understand the right reasoning to go to a 10-foot setback in a commercial zone, minus the uptown. And I think that we should maybe ask the planning and zoning to relook at that, because I think that's the channel how it has to go for future stuff going on.
You'd like to have what is the setback?
I don't know why it's gotta be 10 foot, but 3 foot, 4 foot, 0. We got 0 in uptown.
Right.
In a commercial, it's designated commercial, you know, so that's the only reason I wanted to bring it up. And nobody gave me an answer why it went to a 10 foot, because it was always 0. And now all of a sudden went to a 10 foot except for the downtown area.
There will be a number we should send back to the variance board so they know what number we're looking at.
Not the variance plan.
For the planning zone, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's something for us to discuss, and that's why I asked Scott to put it on the agenda to talk about. I don't have the right number, I don't know why it got changed, and nobody can tell me that, so.
So we would need a motion to send back to there and ask them to.
I guess I'm okay, we'll just go ahead and have the issue presented back to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
And you'll be at that meeting too, I bet, Dale.
I'm sure.
I hope so.
Well, I was at the last one.
Yep. Okay, hiring seasonal employees and wages.
I've got some questions on that. First of all, campground manager is at $20 an hour right now. And on this proposal, it's at 21, why is that?
So, as we discussed last time about making some changes to wages, I guess to encourage employee applicants and to encourage folks to accept the position. Same thing when we were looking at some of the other returning employees. So Sandy would be proposed to have an increase, but Eric and Mark had a little increase then also.
I think a raise at least shows that we care, and we stuck Sandy in a position last year, she had no idea what she was doing when she got there.
But in our union negotiations, we did a 3% raise,
Right.
and that was for all management and other personnel, non-union personnel. So why is this one 5?
It doesn't affect the campground. I don't know,
Well,
I just thought we should do something to encourage her to stay.
Well, I think we should just look at that when we talk about the rest of them, department heads and managers and non-union employees.
Can I ask a question?
You
So
bet.
then is the 3% not been awarded to the non-union, is that what you're saying?
Not yet,
No.
not till the next fiscal year.
right.
Usually considered in June.
And then, you know, I looked at the past years as far as employees. Back in 2019, we had 10 employees. 2020, we bumped that up to 12. 2021, we had 13, and now we're looking at 15.
But they're not gonna we're not gonna be opening more hours, we're just gonna.
It's because what we did is we sourced out the bump outs and the mini golf. So instead of having your regular 11, 12, or 13 come in and work them hours, they won't have to. We're hiring people just specifically, like, I'll say like Beth Nate, she's specifically only gonna work on bump outs, rather than sending Steve Radloff or Jennifer Harmon up to do it. So they wouldn't be working those hours.
Just want to talk through that a little bit, Sandy, about those positions, everything from the campground attendant, who's doing what, to concessions
And
and mini golf.
First, there's a couple people I don't know, so can you just go through the people, who they are, just before I'm making a motion to hire somebody, I'd like to know who they are.
Sure.
From campgrounds down, those people, you know, Ruth, Jennifer Harmon,
Just back up a second. Amy Hartwood, which I understand
I
is,
was supposed to start at the attendance,
oh, sorry,
so you just said. I can start at the top,
that's fine, I know you, I think
Okay.
everybody knows you.
yep. Amy Hartwig
Right.
is applied for the assistant campground manager, that would be Tammy's daughter.
Okay,
Ruth
and she lives in Lakeview?
Green.
No, Amy.
Amy, yes.
Oh,
Yes, she
Amy,
does.
yes, she
I'm
lives
just
in Lakeview.
asking, because,
No, she's living with us right now.
which is great, I'm not, don't take it the wrong way, but I remember in a previous council, one of the council members voted to hire somebody, and then he looks and says, who is she, where's she from? So I wanna know who that is before I make a motion to hire. Okay, Ruth?
Jennifer Harmon, she's a local.
From Wall Lake,
She's
isn't
from
she?
Wall Lake.
Okay.
Tony Harmons, Steve Radloff, Wall Lake. Tucker Freeze, Lakeview, Kylie Hauser, Campground, Jersey Swans, Lakeview, Haley Timmerman, Campground, meaning their folks live there all summer. Nancy Lampy, she's a long-term at the campground. Denise Bellinger, Denise
I know
Langbein,
Denise, Nancy Lampy's a long time
she's
camper.
on she's on the lakefront from Harlan.
Harlan.
And so what their position has worked out is that Nancy will be there on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Denise will do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So it's still just one person a day. And like I told these gals, like, it's not a ton of hours at all. It's come in the spring and the fall will be a little bit more hours, but once we get it all cleaned up and get the plants in, it's come in, blow the mini golf off, water the flowers, weeding and stuff like that.
And that's what we're gonna get one of them new blowers for, right?
Yes. Yes. And
Yes, I do
he's-
have the
It's
proposed
mostly
blower that
a
they
lot
had.
for
I
more
got
for
back on
Beth
load.
uptown on the bump outs. You know Beth,
Yep.
How
Eric.
many hours are you proposing for Beth? On
Um,
the bumps?
Okay, so I kinda thought I had an idea, but now I don't, it's gonna be less because we have, the Iowa State Extension, that conversation I had with you guys the last time, and the Master Gardeners, they're gonna come in and do a lot of this cleanup, which I thought we were going to be doing a lot of it. So for Beth, it's a couple times a week. for a few hours. And again, it might be more in the spring and the fall. She's texted me already today. She just wants to get going. I have not had that conversation with her about the Iowa Extension into detail. She just wants to get her hands in there, and she'd probably do it for nothing. She just can't. She loves Main Street. She just wants it to be beautiful. So again, like when you look at our concessions people, we had them kids coming in at 8 o'clock. They now probably don't have to come in until 10:30.
Do they even have to be in there that soon? I mean, we don't have an open beach no more.
Right. Even 10:30, it's a discussion, like I just wanna sit down and figure out and look at my thing last year, and they all know, like, the little bit we've talked to them, this isn't a ton of hours. And the reason we did 4 is because last year, 2 of them always wanted to go to the same place, and I didn't have nobody to work. You know, like, they just,
So.
I'm just saying with the, you say 10:30 and
I mean, it could be 11,
somebody in the office, can't they be taking care of
and we,
that
yes.
also?
Yep,
Yeah, I
we sure
mean,
can.
there surely isn't that big of a demand for window service.
Not on Mondays and Tuesdays, we never had concession people, hardly, rarely ever.
Okay,
Wednesday, not so much even.
I mean, I just,
But
with
then,
people-
back then, they had to be there though, we had them come in at 8:30 last year because they had to get mini golf ready. So trust me, I'm working on the budget, I've already been told about the budget line.
okay.
You bet.
Sure.
Because we have had that discussion, you know, wages have gone up. But we just approved a budget that has a wage number in it. You know, she gets to live by that wage number. And
Like this Jennifer,
so there's some efficiencies that have to happen.
like this Jennifer's kinda taken over what Jack did. I foresee that, Jennifer's probably gonna be able to do it from 8 to 2 o'clock. So that will be less hours there as well.
And then we've also talked about getting down farther, the parks employees, you know, a head or a lead park employee. Are we pursuing that at all, or?
Just as far as what's been done here, Mike, as far as looking at this season, we would look to bring back Eric and Mark, and then Craig Kitchen would be a third parks employee. Craig is a retiree from Sac City.
Sac City?
Yeah.
It isn't like we had 35 people applying for these jobs either.
This is
We're
about
lucky to get
everybody
what
that
we get.
applied.
But we haven't put out there that we need a lead park employee.
No.
Yeah, and when you look at,
And Eric wants to cut back.
So you're looking at Craig to take some of the pressure off Eric.
right, oh yeah,
And more.
yeah, and that's why
The park workers is like somebody to help mow and weed eat. And I've tried everything. I've got it on my Facebook, I've got it on the campground's Facebook, I got people sharing it. You know, anybody looking for a summer mowing job and weed eating. You
'Cause
know,
we-
it's Monday through Friday, no holidays. And we've just had no kids respond to that.
But we are still looking then for one parks worker, you see the blank there?
Yeah.
That would be the Memorial Day to Labor Day type of summer parks worker, usually a kid. Okay, but with that though, a couple of the concession workers, you have to remind me which ones are certainly open to being able to assist with.
Tucker Freeze can
grounds
just
maintenance.
do things that isn't motorized, cause he's not old
Yeah,
enough,
no,
but
no,
he
no.
can go out and do like sticks and stuff like that. Kaylee Timmerman, she is 16 and she's willing to do anything and everything and work every day.
Especially the bioretention cells, but Eric and Mark don't like.
Yeah.
She said she'd help.
Yep.
And who's Mike Muehlbauer?
Okay, Mike Mulbauer is, mid-20-year-old fella lives in Vale now. Most recently a truck driver, but he's actually been an equipment operator. And, you know, as far as a good qualified employee, he's a good qualified employee. Why he wants to come work a summer job? He just said, I'm willing to come work a summer job, you know, and he mentioned get his foot in the door, but I don't know that it's
Oh, there we go.
what comes of that, but he's,
I just didn't notice it.
yeah, and he's, like I say, lives down in Vale, he's gonna drive up here for a $14 an hour summer job. With him though, he is also available early, and we would like to get him on board here sooner rather than later.
So we can drive around leak.
Hope not.
I'm okay with all of that, with the exception of the campground manager wage. I'd like to see that stay at 20 until we talk about that. That'd be my feeling on it.
Well, I think you ought to give her something. I think to me it's a slap in the face if we're not gonna at least increase her somewhat.
Well, nobody said we're not increasing it, John. It was discussed with the department head, is what he said.
Yeah, that's fine.
So you're making the motion that we hire everybody that's on here at the wage set minus the campground manager. We'll set her wage later. Still hire as a manager, but set her wage later.
Oh,
I have a question. How many hours does Ruth get?
She's probably looking at 4 or 5 days a week, like 7:30 to 11:30. And except for maybe on holidays, it might be 5 or 6 days a week from 7:30 to 11:30.
For, I guess for processing to keep things legal, so we always have Sandy under a resolution that would, I guess, propose then that we change that to $20, and with the understanding that it's looked at for adjustment in June with the department head.
With the department head?
Am I allowed to say anything?
Yes.
You know, I understand the budget as well as anybody, and you have to be careful in all this, but I'm here to tell you, she's got a whole bunch of new employees coming on. There's a lot of training involved here. That campground, when you go back and look at those figures from 2014 or whatever you are, what is the revenue from that campground? And that campground is much fuller than it used to be. There's a lot of work down there. I just hope you'll consider that. Sandy's had to do a lot of juggling, she's had to do a lot of planning, she's had to figure out the bump outs, she's had to figure out all these things. You know, Ruth's situation, I mean, all of that was difficult to deal with. I really wish you would
And
consider
we're
it.
opening earlier this year. I got 15, what do you call them, construction guys probably coming in here soon.
I don't think anybody's opposing the raise, Vicki. I'll get back to you were bringing it up. It's the precedent that you set with a manager or lead person, doing one for one, one for the other. Now that if we do this for her, now we've just set the precedence for the rest of the leads, and that's not what we negotiated when we did the union negotiations. So that's where we're coming from. And you can't separate it out, as well as you know that. We can't make one for one and one for another. And you know that as well as I do.
Well, we have done that, I mean, not you, you know, or not any specific council maybe, but, you know, they gave Scott a little bit of a raise last year. I mean, because when you come to do those non-union negotiations, you kind of can do what you want. Obviously, it always kind of follows the union negotiations.
Right.
But, you know, from now until the fiscal year, she's gotta have that campground up and running and dealing with new people, and I just think it's acknowledging someone's job performance.
That's acknowledged, and again, June is, we'll talk about it in June instead of.
The first time we seen this much of a bump was Saturday when we got our packet. And now it's Monday, and when you see that, you need to talk through stuff, and this is where we're talking through it right here.
I think except for mine though, well, I feel that we had already talked about all these wages with everybody else at the last council meeting.
Yeah, we did.
So like Eric, Mark, all these guys got $1.
Yep, so Dave made the motion to do all this with the review of the managerial position later, and I'll second it.
Roll call.
Okay, Waltman,
Yes.
Beckman,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Muller.
Yes.
Thank you.
No.
Okay, ordinance 522, floodplain.
Floodplain. All right, just want to talk through this a little bit. So for decades, really, Lakeview has had a floodplain ordinance. We've had a floodplain map. And the last time that the floodplain map was ever looked at was, I believe, in the 80s. So over the past 10 years or so, the state has had a real comprehensive look at most all of the floodplain areas in the state. And then new floodplain maps come out of this. So I gave you some of the highlights of the maps, and then the entire maps are hanging there just so you can really see what the whole thing really consists of. But just I want to go through this. I'm on page 18 and just highlight some of the areas. So anything that looks to be in that lighter blue color, that would be just a holdover of the lake, and those are considered to be floodplain areas. And you'll see them referred to as Zone AE, and that's the lake is also Zone AE, and that's that elevation. 1224.4 is the elevation of a 100-year flood at the lake. So, and you gotta keep that in mind a little bit, because when you get to the permitting thing about people building in the floodplain, you gotta have their lowest floor 1 foot above that 1224 mark. Okay. Now you look to the top up there on the highway. There's a floodplain up there. It's called Zone A. Okay, and there is no elevation that goes along with that. Zone A is a 100-year flood, but they have not established what the elevation would be. So the areas, again, Camp Crescent, of course, is included in that. Ice House Point is included in that a little bit. Okay, to look at Ice House Point, and hopefully you can see it on your copy, about the things that look a little browner, right adjacent to the blue area. The brown area is 500-year floodplain, and the blue area is the 100-year floodplain. Okay, just they have made that distinction now.
Is some of that brown area in the campground then?
The north area, I think, yeah, probably is, and you can see that better on the bigger maps. But the distinction there for permitting purposes, it just really doesn't come into play. Everything's basically based off the 100-year floodplain stuff for permitting purposes.
So what about the brown area? It looks like maybe, is that Speaker Park?
That's Speaker Park, yep.
Okay.
Yep, that is. So, yep, you see Ice House Point, okay, then look at Denison Beach. There is some area out there of blue in Denison Beach. Now, when you get down to it and you want to know if a property is included in the area, we'd go online and you can zoom in very close and find out down to the nitty-gritty. But you see Denison Beach Park is, and then potentially would have some impact on maybe neighboring properties. And really those are the ones to take a look at on that page. Flipping to page 19. Really the point of the biggest impact that this would have is Provost Point. So that's upper right-hand corner of the picture, where you can see that virtually all of that Provost Point area is included in the floodplain now. And I tell you that I've just recently had conversations with the contractor about wanting to either make some improvements or have new construction, basically, of the cabin at Provost Point. You know, if that were to come to be, and they'd even make some substantial improvements, they got to comply with the floodplain ordinance. And we'll go through that. But the main part about that is that the lowest floor has to be a foot above floodplain. So they would set the floor of the main house at least 1225.
So does that go to create an issue with changing the waterfall, like with your neighbors, if you're right on the edge of that floodplain then?
It's mentioned in that ordinance too about raising the flow of things through a floodplain or a flood ditch.
So we'll go through these changes.
Yep.
After we go through the maps.
Yep. I just want to start off by showing you what the areas are that are included. And that tip of Provost Point has always been in the floodplain. It's just that it was a paper map before, and it would just look like a map, and you couldn't necessarily tell which properties were included, where it's much more definitive now. Also, on Provost, a small part of the north side of Provost is in there too, which I find that to be amazing. That those, I thought those are up on a little bit of a a cliff or a ledge there, but there is a few properties in the middle of the north side that would be included potentially also. Yep. Page 20. Things of note here, really the one thing of note is that there's a few properties over there on Lakewood. And as I'm looking at, you know, I'm thinking Tiefenthaler, their house, you know, that area. It looks to be in the floodplain. And then another one of the things way off to the right side where it just says Zone A, that's not necessarily flooding from the lake. That would be more flooding potentially from the river or the overflow from the lake, then out the outflow. And then page 21, I think is the last one. So some additional areas there. There are some properties directly south of the outlet. So those first few houses south of the outlet would be included in floodplain. And then like the Schrader condo area down there, lower right. Okay. And again, there's some tan areas that show on this this section of the map, and the tan areas there are 500-year floods. So really the reason why we have these floodplain maps, of course, for informational purposes, but those zones define flood insurance. It defines eligibility for flood insurance. And for our residents to be eligible to purchase flood insurance, the city has got to have a compliant ordinance in place. So, working with the state just simply asked that we send them our ordinance, and basically they update it. So, as you're looking at this, then the highlights would be something new. There's a couple things in there in red font.
So the highlights, everything highlighted in yellow is new, or your red, blue, and green, I have a hard time defining the difference when it's highlighted over yellow.
Yeah, so things that are highlighted in yellow are new, okay? Things that, there's some red font in there, and it would be us inserting our appropriate local information. And there's blue font about alternatives and green font about alternatives. And we can take a look at some of that stuff. But so understanding that things in yellow are new. If you were to take this and lay it side by side with our existing code, though, it doesn't just jive section by section by section. It's rewritten so that some sections are incorporated into other sections. It wouldn't just follow and then you'd find the new parts. But anything in yellow is new. But there's a couple of things even that I wanted to point out, and of course answer questions. But I want to point out item number 2, which is not even highlighted. That's base flood. Base flood is basically the 100-year flood area. So that then becomes a break off about when this floodplain information comes to bear as a 100-year flood. So number 3 talks about the base flood elevation, and then defines what the base flood elevation would be. Page 24.
Yeah, I know what I do.
So that item there, number 3, base flood elevation, that is the number in the AE district or the Lake district. That's the 1224. So when someone would look to construct in the floodplain and it's in the AE district, they know that they gotta get to 1225. So in order to do that, though, it certainly requires that they're using a surveyor or an engineer in order to establish elevation.
So that's the ones in The blue or the brown?
Blue. And another thing that's not highlighted, but just to point out about what development means, and then that defines what development is, and of course it includes buildings and stuff, but it's also any other type of man-made changes, which can be just altering grade of the ground. Six describes an enclosed area below the lowest floor, okay, when that'd be a basement, and that can be below that elevation, but it's, there's certain things that need to happen to that area below the lowest floor. K-12 talks about the 500-year flood. Again, just not that it happens once every 500 years, it's just a percentage that they say there is 0.2% chance that they would have this level of flood. And the flood insurance study has been done for the county, and then this information is based on that. Let me know when you have any particular questions. Okay, but number 23 describes what the lowest floor is. It's the lowest floor of the lowest enclosed area in the building, including a basement, except when it meets these criteria about which basically allows it to be filled with water and have water flow through it, and then it's constructed in the Okay, maximum damage potential. There's one area that refers to this, and this is really high value and high impact properties, such as like hospitals and that type of stuff. That's the one time when the 500-year flood would come into play, would be locating like a hospital. That it wouldn't be permitted there.
So, these highlighted things in yellow are recommendations from the state that we need to put in our thing?
Yeah. You know,
So what if we don't change it?
it would not be compliant with the state, and
And then they wouldn't be able to get flood insurance if they built in that zone.
you know, the state has a nice way of saying this, but at least it's nice that basically you're gonna comply with what it is that the state wants to, and state and federal, because ultimately it's FEMA. But
So,
yeah,
so the other areas on all these pages that you give us with the green and the blue,
those are some options.
does that mean we can optionally change it to that language except for the language that's in there?
Right, yeah. Yeah, so when you look at 33, and it's discussing what is substantial damage, and substantial damage has always been a value equal or exceed 50% of the market value of the structure, and that would be considered to be substantial damage. You do have some options there about how it could have substantial damage being on two separate events, or if you wanted to have a different type of definition there. That one in particular, the substantial damage, that 50% is consistent with our zoning code on non-conforming uses. So that one, I would suggest we would say with the original language.
I agree.
Okay, and then substantial improvement, that's describing the types of improvement that they would have. So this is repair or reconstruction, which equals or exceeds 50% of market value, okay? Either before the start of construction of the improvement, or if the structure has been substantially damaged and being restored before the damage occurred. So that's how you would determine whether it's a substantial improvement then. When you get down to it, you're not gonna be allowed to make any type of substantial improvement or new construction without complying with the code. And I guess as we go through this tonight, I guess I'm looking at this, council, as an educational thing, maybe more than anything. I don't know that you're gonna be ready to take action on a reading of the ordinance or not, ends up being a big new issue for us. The note on the bottom of page 27 ultimately refers to historic structures, and that you can remodel historic structures in a floodplain. Okay, and then middle of page 28, you get to where they're establishing the statutory authority for being able to do this. So that's laying out the basis for why we have this code. And C, that's highlighted there, says the chapter relies upon engineering methodologies for analyzing flood hazards which are consistent with the standards established by the DNR. Again, we could not have our own standards about what the flood hazard would be. Flip to the next page. These are maybe more than anything else, these are the items that have got to be updated into the city's code, and that's the red text in that second paragraph. Just to confirm that we have mentioned the proper map panels, and that's the legal side of this, to know that it's updated to these updated maps. Okay. Then number 2 talks about interpreting the flood hazards. You know, as we get down to the bottom, we'll see the administrator. The administrator of this ordinance is proposed to be the mayor. But then, if they would have interpretation or disagreement with the interpretation from the flood administrator, that it would go to Planning and Zoning Commission. Okay, again, the bottom of the page says mayor. Practically speaking, I hope the mayor doesn't have to be the one to administer this, but you could delegate to whom you would have administer it.
You know where that's going.
Yeah, because then it lays out the duties of the administrator 1 through 11, and you see that there's new 9, 10, and 11 are new. Okay, about maintaining the flood maps. Okay. Number 10, perform site inspections to ensure compliance with the standards of this ordinance. And that then is saying, of course, that it needs some field work. And by the time she'll be really able to answer questions about elevation and stuff, it takes some professional work to do that. Which your citizens, you know, they certainly may not like that. It has some additional cost associated with it in order to do that.
But it's only in them certain areas, right?
It's just the floodplain, yeah, it's just a handful of houses in the city. Okay, and forwarding requests for variance to the P&Z. So it does have a process for requesting variances.
So we can allow them to have, well, would that go to the P&Z or would that go to your Board of Adjustments?
It ends up going to the Planning and Zoning, or it's red, you could change it to be what we would want it to be. It would most likely be the Planning and Zoning or the City Council. The Board of Adjustment hears things pertaining to the zoning code, and this would be outside of the zoning code.
So a hypothetical, where Lyle Tegel's built his new home, looks like it's in this floodplain from the map. I'm just using that as hypothetical. If he was building new and he needed a variance, he would come to the Planning and Zoning to get the variance to build how he wants to?
He would have, yeah, he would lay out some rationale for why he would be able to build, or he's taken certain steps to flood-proof the house, you know, or other things like that. So there could certainly be reasons why you would grant a variance.
Or he doesn't have to have flood insurance.
I don't know if that's true, Dale. I don't, my understanding is that you just can't build in the floodplain. You need to be compliant with this.
Okay. I'm just asking because I'm not.
Have you heard about that there, Dale?
Well, there's two aspects to that, but one is if he's financing it, the bank is not going to loan money to build into the flood zone without insurance. And second one is P&Z can't grant a variance that's against the law or the code, so if it directly says thou shalt not, it wouldn't matter exactly what he came up with. They wouldn't have the authority if it was challenged
Okay.
to permit it.
So it really don't matter who's planning to go, or who it is.
This is pretty nasty.
Yeah.
They had a lot of lawyers write that. It's on the feds.
Well, then you get to the meat of the deal, it's on the bottom of page 31. And that's saying that you gotta meet those plain standards, all developments gotta meet the floodplain standards. And, okay, and it talked about that base flood elevation, again, that's established for the AE ones in the lake, that's established, but if this was a zone A, that is not established, and actually, we would work with the DNR in order to be able to establish what that is for a 100-year flood. All right.
Are either one of them potential developments in this floodplain?
No. I sure don't think so.
I'm looking on the map, just to clarify on the map. They're not on this picture.
Yankees is not, and Lands is not. A floodplain, the Zone A floodplain, closely abuts up to where Bobby Terrell was.
Yeah. it's-
But then he would have filled those south lots, so that it certainly,
Right, so you have a better picture of this one? The Hinkie Brotherton deal, or potential Hinkie
Yeah.
one?
yeah.
Where's that picture at?
No, I used 21. Page 21 to show that.
That's enough too.
I just,
That's,
I just copied
so
certain
that,
sections.
the blue part's in there, but not the brown, right?
The blue part is like the trees on the corner.
Okay.
Looks like all that is outside.
Yeah, everything south of the road is not.
Alright.
All right, so if we're on page 32, here is the big thing, and it's item B there in the middle. A lot of it's not highlighted, but that's residential structures. Okay, new or substantially improved residential structures shall have the lowest floor, including basement, elevated to a minimum of 1 foot above the base flood elevation. That is the biggest part of this ordinance. And again, that's nothing new with it. We just have some newer maps that better define what this might be.
Again, it's only talking about them blue and brown areas, right?
Blue, only the blue,
Only the blue.
not blue. The brown does not, no effect on the brown.
Okay.
Okay, C talks about non-residential structures. Again, this would even be like a garage, that you wouldn't be able to just put up a garage there without it being 1 foot above flood line. Page 33 gets to some unique things, and this is the deal about if you're subject to flooding, you have to have openings in your foundation that allow water to flow through your foundation. So this lays that stuff out there.
They have that in Florida, where our house is in
No.
Florida. Good thing too, we could have helped during the hurricane.
I think this is overkill for Lakeview, but I guess we gotta go by the same rules.
Yep. There's a couple of options there. Again, I don't know that we need to have anything that really deviates from what the standard is. And a couple of new things there, items 3 and 4, at the middle bottom of the page, especially number 3. New and substantially improved structures shall be constructed with the electric meter, electric service panel box, hot water heater, heating, air conditioning, all that good stuff, elevated at least 1 foot above base flood elevation. So that has really the net effect that you couldn't have any of that stuff in your basement, even if you built a compliant basement. And a compliant basement would something that would be allowed to flood and get water out. But anyway, now you have to make sure that all of your mechanical work is above floodplain. Special stuff on factory-built homes. And it gets just a little confusing here. I'm at the bottom of page 34, where we're at accessory structures. Accessory structures to residential uses, so a detached garage is exempt from the base flood elevation when these things occur, and that's on the next page. And it has a size limitation of 600 square feet. So any large garage would still need to comply with the floodplain ordinance.
Keep going, I won't miss anything.
Bottom of page 35, that is the one time that your floodplain is mentioned, and that has to do with, again, these vital facilities like hospitals, or mentions fuel storage and this type of stuff. .36 we can bypass, and 37 gets into then what the variance procedures would be. We're proposing that would go to the planning and zoning. Yeah. And there you go. What's your thought on a floodplain ordinance?
Can you review that again?
I'll sleep so much better tonight.
We had one of these in place,
We have, yeah. Very simple, you know.
but it hadn't
the
been
meat of-
updated for 30 years?
40 years, yeah. The meat of it's the same, you know, that build a foot above the floodplain, that's the same.
We were just not required to update it any sooner than that?
True, it has to do with this map update.
Okay.
Yep. So, you know, I guess I would ask that at some point the council would go ahead and consider this. Now, there's those optional language things and the red and the green texts. How would you like to approach that? I mean, would it be okay if I would just go through and basically probably eliminate the options? I was okay with not considering any of the optional text unless you wanted to.
I'm okay with that.
You want to have further discussion about that stuff.
Well, the options, we don't have that. Right. I'm okay with dropping the options,
Okay.
just going with the suggestions from FEMA. Yeah, I don't have-
Suggestion, that's a nice way.
Keep them happy.
Government at work.
Yeah.
Progress.
All right. Would you like to see an updated ordinance next time, or are you okay with voting on a first reading, or what's your thoughts?
I'd be okay making a motion, we approve 522 without the options.
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Okay, Woltman,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Moller,
Yes.
Stankin,
Yes.
Beckman.
Yep.
Blackhawk
Thank you.
Recreation wants to allow rental of golf carts. Wanna say anything?
I don't know. If you have anything to say back about it? I guess we just mostly don't know how many or anything, wanna get a few golf carts. Everybody asked for golf carts and electric bicycles, what they want. I'd like to give it to them. we'll pay our fees like every other golf cart does. And with the electric bicycles, I guess you guys are gonna have to tell me what the law is or what you wanna know about that, or what I need to know.
I think there's already a lot of electric bikes in there.
Yeah, you know, and that, on the bicycle end of things, we had amended the lease agreement then last year to allow for bicycles.
Yeah, I don't know
And
if
the-
this is the right one, because that one I don't think says bikes.
Yeah, this says just not,
You don't have a bike in it.
not motorized
I
boat.
think the one we had last year just had it written in,
Oh, sorry.
so.
How
Well, if we
are they
could rewrite
allowing motorized bicycles on the path? Stated on all entries, it's no motorized vehicles.
They'd have to go out and enforce it, I'm not sure they do
Well,
that.
because they didn't, when they put that sign up there, they didn't even have electric
I,
bikes.
yeah, I know, that,
That's what I want, I
The
don't want a
signage
problem
should
with that by
probably
these
change
expensive
that.
bikes.
Everybody's got electric bikes,
I
they're not
know,
gonna be able
but
to.
I mean,
yeah.
then they should at least change the signage.
They should.
It's, and
I just like
it seems to me,
the
Mike, and I
rock
couldn't just swear to this, but there's been some state law changes that allow for these e-assist bikes.
Yeah, I just don't wanna go buy them all, then you guys tell me I can't do that
They're
anymore.
already out there, I don't know what we could do.
Yeah, the bikes, I'm comfortable with the bikes.
And then
It's
the
the
golf
golf
cart,
carts that I just kinda have a,
it'll be like anybody else driving their golf cart, there'll be our insurance, it'll be licensed, there'll be 2-year, I guess it'd be like you wouldn't know that I'm even renting it out, they're gonna be driving it around. Up to your code,
You just can't drive in the campground.
or whatever your law is, they can't do, exactly. Just like anything on the lake, once they leave us, the DNR sits there and writes them tickets if they're doing something wrong. Life jacket ain't on at the end of our dock, they write them a ticket right there. Ain't our problem, it's their issue.
Golf carts, I'm a little concerned about that. Couple of things. First of all is that, you know, you'll be parking them down in a busy area. What happens if they break down somewhere, you know, other than, everything else you guys got's right there, right by the lake, you know what I'm saying? And if a bike breaks down, that's one thing, where we got a golf cart sitting somewhere. I know we had a discussion with Dave, Dave had said that the city would not be liable for any kind of, if something went wrong, you know, that they, you'd have the insurance, whatever. Me, myself, if I would have a problem or an issue, and I felt it was your fault, you know, I'd go after you. I'd also still go after the city, just to get them involved with it. And my problem with that is that we might not have the right, we're not supposedly getting involved, but if something would happen, we'd have to prove to them that we weren't involved, and that would take a lawyer, somebody sharper than.
Is that an issue with me renting it out from the ground I'm leasing from you? Is that how it's gonna come back to you? Because I can lease it from my mom's house, or if that's a blockage, because then it shouldn't be anything to do with the city. I mean, if the only reason it's come back to the city is because I'm
As
renting
long
it
as we
from a
got that
lease.
contract, that's gonna be able to trace back to there is city involvement.
You know, and this is what I was telling Sandy this afternoon too, you know, to me the issue, for me personally, it's not necessarily even an issue about golf carts or whatnot, it's a lease issue. And that's why it comes to the city council, is, it would be a legal issue on amending the lease. So,
Yeah,
that's,
well, yeah,
yeah,
it really ain't in here either. It just says no motorized boats, and I ain't got any.
sure, yeah.
and again, he mentioned, you know, if one would break down, you know, you'd be leaving your position at the city to go rescue
Oh,
a
If that
broken
become-
down golf cart, or the people that were driving the golf cart, get them a ride back to their,
if that became an issue, I guess we'd have a problem with it, and if it didn't get resolved the first time, we could axe it, but I'd really like the opportunity to fulfill what everybody wants. I guess that's all I'm asking, before I do it, and then you tell me no.
People have asked for this service.
Yes. People don't want to pedal a bike.
The bikes are the
Dude,
least
it-
rented thing. We bought 6 new truck bikes and none of them have
People
30
don't
miles
wanna
on them.
pedal boat, people don't. We're doing our best with what we
They
got.
want everything motorized, is
Yeah.
what you're saying.
I just-
Anything can break down. I mean, a
Yeah.
bike can break down,
yeah.
I'm
they
just
can
trying to
get a
take the
flat
opportunity
tire.
to
I
have what
didn't
we got
leave my
going
job
on.
to go pick up every bike. I never picked up one single bike that had any problems with it. Not that the bikes had any problems. The Siri bike, I didn't leave my job to go take care of all the city bike issues, but there were issues. People got tired of pedaling,
And then you want to be pulled back.
and they're like, yeah, send somebody to give us a ride.
I've seen some of those go by the house. They were struggling.
I don't know how you can pedal around the lake.
I guess I'm trying just to maximize the opportunity of having what we have before, I mean, keep doing what we're doing it, I ain't gonna do it forever, because if you can't grow, there's no point in it, I guess.
Would be another amenity that people would come to the lake and drive around the lake.
I mean, I'm not putting a number on how many golf carts we have or nothing like that. Try it, could be more, could be less.
Maybe we
Okay.
start with 1 or 2.
Yeah, so we're gonna, I mean, start, I don't wanna put a number on anything with you guys, cause then it's gonna come back to, you said 2.
The problem
I
with
don't
that,
wanna
the
say
problem
two.
with that though, I'm gonna tell you right now, and you've got a limited amount of space down there now. You start with 2 golf carts, they're rented out, now you get 2 more, they're rented out, now you get 2 more, they're rented out. Now the city has just granted you more space, a
We don't
valuable
get the
layout.
space we have, just so you
If
know.
I have this whole space,
You already got more space than what you really should have for the fee that you're paying.
And that could be, but that,
I-
we never said the amount, but I just
I-
want you to know, we don't.
I know that,
And
but
we put a
here's-
humongous, public bike thing there where other kids and people can come park.
I'm just saying, one thing
But I get
leads to
your
the
point.
next, one thing leads to the next, that's my, and I've heard it, and that's my 2 cents worth, how's that?
and I guess if the area is gonna be an issue too, then I'd like my area blocked off, so no one parks in it every day. I mean, I know, exactly, you can't do that, so I'm just trying to maximize the opportunity, I mean,
I've never heard any complaints about it down there, other than they thought it was great because their family came to visit and
yeah.
they got on a bike.
People
So-
park right beside our building all the time, we never have had a problem, we don't say nothing to them, we just work around their vehicles that are parked all around our vehicles, or our building.
Well, what you're doing is what we talked about as a council 4 or 5 years ago, we decided we couldn't do it. Right? I think you guys do it.
And then you sold the stuff, is that right?
What's
You
that?
sold the stuff?
No, the rent bikes, kayaks and all that stuff.
And you sold it then, right?
Sold what?
The stuff that you bought to rent out?
Probably.
What do you mean probably? What do you mean probably? You know you sold the stuff.
Sold what?
The city council bought kayaks and canoes to rent out at the campground, and then they sold it
Yep.
on Facebook. Well, now you're saying yes?
Yeah, we
Okay,
did some,
okay.
yeah, because we weren't using
Just
them.
wanna get it clear.
Yeah, just like the paddle boats.
Just get it
Getting
clear.
broke all the time.
Yeah, wasn't advertised, wasn't publicly advertised.
It was advertised.
Well, I would say that the city staff at that time did not wanna put up with that, they were tiny little kayaks, if you'd call them a kayak.
So
I mean,
it should have
it
been done,
wasn't-
it should have been handled the right way.
There, I think what the council agreed on was that there was not staff to.
Council
to-
never agreed to sell it. Not one time at a council meeting did you guys agree to sell it.
I think we should get,
Back to my golf carts.
No, it's nothing to do with that, it's not the subject, so.
If you need another day to think about it, I'd like an answer as soon as possible. I'm not, heck, I don't wanna start a commotion about either, but I want to grow, I guess.
We don't wanna put more research into it, cause we were already with our insurance, and then gotta talk to them, which we're pretty much done with the, we lease the golf carts, we're not buying them the first year, we don't know how this will work. So we have a lease agreement with.
This is technically the second year, right?
Yes.
And I understand the desire to grow a business, believe me, I do.
We learned a lot the first year.
But sometimes you can grow too fast too. Is there such a rush to do it this second year?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're selling stuff that didn't go last year and replacing it with other stuff.
So you're
We're
changing your
try-
inventory to try to accommodate the needs of
Yeah,
your
what
customers.
they
People
asked
told us what
for.
they wanted, we didn't,
Right,
we came in here knowing nothing,
Nothing.
absolutely nothing. I thought people would rent a bicycle every single day.
So we bought 6
I was
brand
wrong.
new trucks.
It's up to the council what they wanna do.
I just have a question, are these electric carts or gas carts and?
They're gonna be gas.
Okay, and then where do you fill them up and that type of thing?
Sparky's.
Just period.
I'll drive it there to Sparky's and fill it up to eat one time a week. They'll still go, they'll drive, I mean, when the person gets on it, it's your law. It ain't nothing to do with any of us. Once they get on it, they're doing something wrong, pull them over, write a ticket. I'll license it with the city.
But we're doing 18 or older versus the city 16 and older for our
I like
insurance.
that idea.
Yeah, that would definitely be 18.
And there's a whole separate waiver just about the golf cart. Not like our other stuff's just jumbled into one waiver.
I'm not even halfway to anything liabilities. I got enough going on in life. I don't need to lose something for someone riding a golf cart.
So,
I mean,
do you have a certain number of these in mind that you wanna get?
I'll start with 2. I don't like using numbers, but 2.
I don't know, I personally just have a problem with golf carts and the amount of room they take up, and, it's such a congested area down there anyway. I guess that's my thought.
That's why we're getting rid of stuff to get rid of that space in that area. Like the IT bike, I've got it sold. And it would sit there on a full trailer.
It doesn't sound like they want to change.
So no?
Like, I'm getting that from the council. I'm not getting a motion to it, let it happen. I guess the answer would be no.
Okay, could I get some rock?
We can find rock.
Once the mud goes away,
If the mud goes
shining it
away.
up down there a little bit.
Yeah, because we use it for parking, we'd have to put rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be good. Well, thank you.
Okay, we need to consider a trailer for the parks.
And I'll let Dean talk about this, maybe, the 2 that you looked at.
Yeah, I called up to, Storm Lake where we got our one trailer that our, mini excavator sits on. Got a price, from them for an Aluma trailer. And you have the price in front of you there. And then I called down to Olson, Power Sports in Carroll. They have one same size, but it's an H&H trailer. And it's $28 cheaper. Talking with a few people, everybody would recommend an Aluma trailer than an H&H trailer. Both places said that they have them on hand, but that was 3 weeks, a month ago or so when I got the prices. You just have to call up there and see either place, see if they have them.
It's 78 by 12. 78's wide enough for any mower we have, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Because the other one's 82 inches.
But the aluminum will be easier for them guys to handle.
To pick up and move around
And it won't look
when
so bad
they're
for a couple of
empty,
years.
but not for.
I'll make a motion, we move forward with buying an Aluma trailer out of Storm Lake Truck and Trailer.
Second?
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Can I make a,
Yep.
with the trailer sitting around, will it be inside? Them things have a habit of walking off.
We can
Or
make them change
can you
it up.
padlock it?
Yeah, I have to.
I mean, buy a
find something
decent
that-
padlock that,
You're gonna have to.
I mean, I want that part of the purchase.
Yep, yep. We want to be there the next day. We can have those guys lock it up.
Securely stored. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure Eric would like to chain it too, he likes to use it.
I just wanna make sure they do use it.
Okay, city administrator report?
Well, let's take vote on this
Oh,
here.
roll call.
Okay, Beckman?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Lawler?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Waltman?
Now the administrator report.
Yep, so we had discussed commercial setbacks. I do have a few other things for you, and this one is related to campground, about making those improvements to that campground bathroom that we had talked about, the leaking showers and whatnot, and we had Greg Smith from Black Squirrel give us his price on that. to add that outside wash-off station, what'd you call that, Sandy?
Rinse station.
Just a rinse station, where folks can come outside and, come over to the east side of the bathhouse and be able to access just a wash station. They're largely washing off their feet.
There's
for,
two buttons, one up here for your feet, or one and you have to hold the button in for the water to come out.
So anyway, to add those, onto the repairs to the shower, cost has gone up on that quite a little bit. Total project on that now would look to be about $4,000.
He was
But
gonna do that
yes,
for
we still,
2,000,
and,
wasn't he?
what's that?
He was gonna do that for 2,000?
It was 2,000, 2,500. Now, we've added this outside wash to it, but the cost has gone up a little bit too, so.
Now they wash their feet in the drinking fountain, right?
No, they wash them off in the sinks inside the bathroom.
Yeah, you
And
really
then
have one on the
all
outside
the
of
sand in the
house.
showers comes down and it
Yeah.
floods the shower
Right,
house.
you should really have one on the outside.
Years ago, we used to have one over on the campground side.
Off the building, Mike?
Used to be a standalone one over there.
Off that old.
Off the
Where's,
old one.
where's the plumbing
old
at for
bathhouse when it
that?
was still there?
Where the, yeah, over across,
Huh.
yep.
Okay.
But I think we should get it done and do it right.
Me too.
Get it
We
right,
plan on getting that done?
yeah, cause the parts are right now 30 to 45 days out, if we can get them.
Then looking at this thing that was at your seat tonight, the Camp Crescent map. This is a little packet about Camp Crescent Electric, so you wanna talk about that, Jeff? Did I set one over there for you?
Yeah, I got one. Talking with Jared from DGR, they did this study, not really pushing anything as far as upgrading wire size, says we're sitting in pretty good shape there. Only thing he added was, in this, I don't know if, yeah, Scott gave you this whole packet. In this packet, it says, 9 sites on 4-aught is really typically what he wants to see. We have a couple spots that may have more than that on 4-aught, but other than the rest of it we've looked at, it's separated out pretty well that way. His biggest concern was transformer upgrade. He'd like to see us upgrade transformers. He's got a couple spots in there where he'd like to see hundreds KVAs put in. We typically have 2 on hand. He proposed either a 75 or 100, and after talking with him, he said that his projection was just down the road more, you know, growth-wise or whatever to go. They always look at it on the high side. But talking with him, 75s across the board and take out the 50s is what he recommended when I talked with him last Thursday. And we have them on hand. And the 50 KVAs that are currently in there, we can put back out into our stock and put them into our development areas.
And would that help with that, when we had them transformer issues
The
with that?
overloading, what, on Transformer 5, Dale, in there,
Is that in 1RR?
that,
122, 123.
Yeah, okay, yep.
yeah. So Transformer 5 and 6. Transformer 5 was the one that we had lost twice last year. Well, his study went off of July and August loads. Well, I split that load up after the second one went in late July. And we didn't have the overheating issue so much with it. But by putting a 75 in there, the top end was I think he showed 76 point something kVA. You can overload a transformer 150%. Well, we were at 76 kVA on a 50 back there last year. So he doesn't see that we'll have any issue with putting a 75 in there because you're at your 100% but not your 150%.
Perfect.
So I'm looking at changing out.
That could help with that issue down the road as well then.
Right. And I'm looking at changing out 5 of them. So the transformer 7's a 37.5 on the lakefront, because we're gonna up them to 50 amp boxes.
Right,
He wants to push that to a 75.
which would make sense.
And then 5 and 6 will go to 75 KVAs, they're currently 50s. Section B, which is transformer 4, is a 50. He'd like to see that go to a 75. I have it on hand, I see no reason not to change it out while we're doing it.
Right,
And then transformer 1 is where the cabins 2 and 3 are on that one. He'd like to see us put a 75 there, and that is currently a 50. That frees up 4 50s to put back in our stock to use elsewhere.
okay, so 2 and 3 is currently a 50, we're putting a 75 there as well?
No, 2 and 3, where our load is way down on that, he has no issue with changing that out. Same with
8,
I might have been a little
8 and
overzealous
9.
on my circling them,
I see that,
2 and 3.
Same with 8 and 9, there wasn't a huge load issue there.
okay. Perfect.
Sounds like a plan.
I think we need to move forward with that. ASAP.
And it's,
I know too.
And then you're working on getting them 50 amp boxes put together for the lakefront as
as
well?
soon as I get, the frost is out now, we're gonna get out by Jerry Cruz's, we potholed today out there. We're gonna do some more locating on that and try to pinpoint this problem and get this dug up and call another locate in tomorrow. I wanna get that problem cured as soon as I can, and then I'm going to the campground.
Okay, that was one of my questions. So that East Shore Drive one, like, by next council meeting, we should have something.
I hope I've got it fixed by
Right,
then.
that's what I mean, yep.
If it's only hitting one spot, that's not a big issue. I was worried about being hit in other spots, but.
Okay. I got it. So we're good with the campground stuff, right? With the electrical?
Yes.
Okay, can I ask another couple questions? Sure. Since we're on the, so Sandy Ashker had that request way back in January, February. Have we done anything, looking at anything of that yet?
Was trying to do a loop feed.
Yeah.
I talked with the engineer on it.
Yeah, so we met with Jared, the engineer, here that one day.
I mean, she
And
was
just
gracious
looked
enough to
through
come to the
some-
meeting and
some
ask for
different
that, so I wanna make sure we follow through and see what our options, if any, are.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and he was taking a look at that, I don't know that anything's been done with it.
Never really, and then it's never really come back up in conversation with him either, but I could surely call him and ask what he said.
I would appreciate that, so sometime we don't have Randy and Sandy in here
It's supposed to be
saying.
raining tomorrow, be a good day for me to call him.
Alright. Okay, and then, anything else?
Yeah, I got a couple others.
Okay, because I got a couple of things I wanna bring up and ask you about.
This one, this picture was just the proposed curb and gutter project that we bid last fall for Crescent Park Drive. We bid it last fall, did not get any bids on it. So my question to the council is whether you would like to try to rebid that here this spring, or what's your thoughts on it?
Well, I'll tell you my thoughts, and I live there and I drive by it every day. That curb and gutter on whatever side you're gonna call that, where the red and black line are, what direction you wanna call it, east?
Yeah.
Is gonna be a waste of money. And as you noticed, when snow was piled up by Kyle and Allie's driveway, when it melted, it already started going across the road until it gets down there. So it's not even gonna get into that curb and gutter. Talked to Dean a little bit today about it, cause he was down at the corner there playing. And he asked, well, what about, you know, if there's a drop off from the road, you know, like where the curb would be? I said, there's already a drop off there with the dirt, and it still just goes right that way. If we're gonna do anything with the curb and gutter, it's gonna have to be on the other side, and for whatever reason, that homeowner didn't want that, so.
I agree, there needs to be intakes put on that lake side of the street. There was years ago, and I explained that day when we met out there, when the old council met out there last fall. There was 2 intakes I know of down toward that end, and
Clear towards the north part of it?
toward,
Northwest.
In Northwest.
toward where the guy remodeled his home,
Sure.
the Peters.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Cause I lived in that home years ago, and it had issues way back then of water running through there. In fact, the old garage that sat there, there's a cast iron pipe that ran in front of the garage and dumped on the campground side. And then in the garage, it was always full of water, and there was a hole bored into the foundation of that to get rid of the water.
Oh, really?
Of the overflow. So the intakes didn't do their job back then either, but were they big enough? Were they engineered right? I don't know, but putting the curb and gutter on the opposite side of the road isn't gonna fix it, cause the water's coming across. It's on the lake side of that street, way back past, well, it starts just this side of Dales and Snyder's, and you break the crest of that hill and
Just that, and we can bid this or not bid this, that's fine. Just that as we look at whatever we wanna do to try to manage that water, it's still my understanding then that we would try to manage that water to do whatever we can to get it to go to the north and end up over there at the, at the museum?
Well, wasn't part of that the conversation to get the water from the campground out of the campground to go to the north?
Yes.
Through the museum?
Yep.
Isn't that what we had Mauer come in and Biddy or whoever we did? Well, you know, I think we need to keep pursuing that in same
Yeah,
way with where
Because
the,
all ties in there.
same way with that new intake that's, where's that campground drawing? Down by lot 91 or A1 and A2, no, excuse me, A8, A7, 132, that's where that intake that now goes towards the lake. I don't know if we can get that to go that way as well, because that's not gonna drain once that, hopefully our lake gets back to a full level, because it's not gonna drain once that's at a full level.
And really, that's part of the purpose for having the entire campground shot.
Correct.
So that engineers there take care of it.
Yeah.
So we don't know.
When will we have them studies back?
Well, I don't have the answer.
They're in town again today.
Yeah. And just so the rest of the council knows, they were in town today, and I walked down there. They're out they're right to the water's edge, making marks today and taking elevations because they're gonna mark at water's edge on this date. Well, our lake's down almost, what, a foot?
at least.
You know, so let's just say a foot for conversation. The water's gonna be so much further up, and then when we get this study, we wanna keep in mind, water's edge was at a different spot than where water edge normally is, because it goes down a foot there. And I went down and visited with them. They said that's the only way they have to do it, is to go by water's edge, not where it usually is. Because we don't wanna use that, and I was explaining to Scott, we don't wanna use that far elevation as how low it is there to try and make it go one way or the other.
Can they give us a variance, shoot it from this spot? What to do about?
So what they were doing is they'd start at that water's edge, and they'd walk all the way down, like from the edge of the campground to like where the tree is. Then they'd walk up about 5 foot, and they'd walk all the way back and take elevations all the way along there, and go 5 more feet up. They're like building a grid.
Oh, okay.
So we should have that, but we don't want, when we get that grid, when they say water's edge, we don't wanna make sure we're not out in the middle of the 10 foot from shore, 12 foot from shore, where we're thinking that's still part of the campground where it's up, that, how far it is down there. If you drive down there, you'll see what I mean, right? So I just wanna make sure when we get that study, that we're not thinking that's the edge of the campground.
Just a couple other things. I got contacted by the after prom committee today about whether the city could make $100 contribution to after prom. And I said that I'd talk with you about it, but as I think about that more, that's one of those types of contributions that we can't likely be making anymore. So I will relay that we're not able to do that. And my last issue, I think, deals with the community center and the purchase of that land, and everything came together then, Dave, and we're ready to close on that now, and it may occur as early as tomorrow.
Correct.
So then do we need to, at the next council meeting, figure out what we're doing with that ground until,
As far as managing the
right,
alfalfa or whatever's.
right, cause somebody was currently renting that today.
Yes. Yep,
So-
yeah, and I have not done anything with that, I'll tell you, Dale, since, as far as working with, the current owner, cause they'll still have part of it up on the highway that the current owner would have their arrangement with the person who has the alfalfa. And we can work with them on that.
Right.
Northwest Iowa League is this Thursday in Aurelia. John's gonna go there for me because I will not be around, I'll be on vacation, taking off vacation, I'll be gone Wednesday to Wednesday.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, I have a few more questions, sorry to keep you a little longer. Have we made new signage down at the city dump yet for where the leaves are supposed to go?
We've got one built and got it ready to go as soon as I talked to, Dan Schrader?
Schroeder.
Something. And he's going to move the concrete that we want out of the way with his little track unit. Get it up out of the way. He's gonna take down a couple trees down the bottom. And he's gonna go through there and make the road down there to where we can turn around, or fire department can turn around with a quick attack. We got that sign for the leaves and the grass clippings, and stuff already done. It's down at the shop, just waiting for it to go put it in the spot. Gonna make one that'll just say ashes for them to put there. Plus, there's been other people that have been taking ashes out there and putting it right by the burn pile. I don't wanna get that away from there, even though they might be cold and stuff, somebody might just bring a hot one at some point. If they got a designated spot for it. That'd be good.
I know you guys talked about this earlier, but I was out there yesterday and you can't hardly even drive. I mean, it's worse than it ever was
We've
last
been
year.
spreading dirt out there right now to kind of help with that a little bit, and then to go out to where the leaves and grass clippings are gonna go. We've got all that asphalt sitting at the shop. We're gonna spread that and kind of make it a little bit more firm.
Make
to
a road to that
Make a road
spot.
out there to where that is, and put a little bit of, kind of around where the burn stuff is gonna be, to help with mud and, drivability.
Because if we don't have it smooth for them to get back there, they're not gonna dump it back there, and
Correct.
we're just gonna be pushing it back there. And then, did we ever purchase a hydrant tester?
I called that guy again, he's working on it still. Talked to Jimmy told me I need to stay on him hard.
And then have we done any investigating on our city dock in the Bay Area?
We're looking for some more than white plastic things to, they screwed up the rubber bumper, they've had to stuck that back on there.
Didn't replace any boards or nothing?
We have not done any maintenance on it, but,
They did put some boards on it here, what, a year or two ago, didn't they?
I think they did some last year,
Last year.
but
Yeah.
they sure didn't wear very well. So.
Well, it looks like,
I didn't think it looked quite that bad. Think seeing non-stick on there would help.
anything I think would help.
But we're looking
That,
for those white plastic things on the.
We put that traction tape on it and stuff, and that's, didn't wear for nothing either, so that was an expensive deal, but we'll likely do that again.
So I have two more questions. I talked to Dean a little bit today, and I noticed, we don't have a seal crack filler, for our asphalt streets. Once they start cracking, water gets in them, freezes in the winter time, makes it worse and worse. Some preventive maintenance on that. Is that something we can look at doing with our street budget, Scott? You followed him, say, I think Dean knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
If Dean says we don't have that machine, well, if we don't have it, can we look at hiring a company to come in and do so many streets or do so many linear feet? The county and the state do it all the time.
Sure. That, because there are some other communities around here that do have one. I think Wall Lake has one.
Maybe we can work something with Wall Acre Sac and get that done. And then, no. Well, you might have to do something.
Yeah.
Joking. So, we had a deal go on the other day, and I don't know if our city employees understand it, and I talked to Dean a little bit about it. But you know, like when we leave our skid loader run, when the employees aren't there and they leave it run for an hour, they're leaving it run for whatever reason. But as anybody know, like why do you know when you go trade a tractor off, they don't trade it off by how much fuel's in the tank, they trade it off by how many hours are on it.
Right.
And you know, that's $110, $120 an hour to trade. We need to convey that to our city employees somehow and get that in our policy. You know, it's like wasting money that don't need to be wasted because it's not putting any use on the machines, but we're putting hours on them. And when we go to update them things, whatever it's going to be, it's going to cost us. And I don't know if we need to come up with a new policy for that.
We spoke to Dean and he's addressed that, I think, so far.
Well, right, okay, so Dean's addressed it and they continue to do it.
Well, then there's a problem.
Correct. But if we don't have that in our policy, we can't write them up for it. And you were in them union negotiations before, you know, unless you can target that stuff, we're stuck with that. That employee can keep doing whatever he wants. We need to get them policies, this is my opinion, we need to get them policies in place so we can put some teeth in our, the same way with driving to a certain spot, let's say driving to Speaker Park from the city shed, the most direct route, instead of all the way around the lake. And we know what's happening, we've got to get it addressed. We've got 1,200 people in this community that pay taxes on them people driving around the lake. And I don't know where the buck stops, but it shouldn't be at my phone or Dave's phone or Whitey's phone or Tammy's phone or Mike's phone or John's phone. I
We've
don't
had
know.
this issue for the last 16 years.
It has been.
Yeah, we tried every time.
So just because it's been, doesn't mean we can't change it.
Oh, yeah, hopefully we can.
Well, we have to start somewhere. If we don't change the,
Well, if we can put it in wording, then
Well, I think Scott, we need to sit down and put a plan together on how we can, you know, because I've come into the office here, there's pickups running out there, and it's, you know.
and
I understand where we're going with this, but until we can be able to have something that's in writing, so we can document it, and that's, and again, Dean, you're gonna have to put your supervisor hat on and kinda say that, you can blame it on the council as far as I'm concerned, because,
Right.
I mean, we see that, and especially with fuel now. I don't know what, you know, what's all diesel or whatever, but my God, you know.
Scott came down to the office here the other day when it happened, or the next day, and we had a talk with everybody that was there, and we said, shut the trucks off, it's warm enough out, gas prices, fuel prices are going up. Everybody knows it, because everybody was there.
But a policy is.
A policy is, but once you determine what the policy is, you write it up and you make them sign it
We
so
can
they
enforce it.
understand.
Right.
So they understand that, well, I was never told this. Well,
You're
here's
signing off on
that-
the paper that says you
here's that sheet of paper
you
with
were
your
told.
signatures on there, and you understand when we had the discussion. So that's how you,
And we've done that with several other different issues, did
Well,
something
good,
just
yeah.
very similar to that, you write up a memo and have a
like
employee
break,
meeting.
do we do that with our break times?
That's,
it's already in
we
there.
already have rule on that, I mean, it's just a matter of enforcing all that stuff.
So who's in charge of enforcing that stuff?
We look to our department head to
yep.
to make sure that that's.
So if you have an instance like that and somebody's going over on their break times or whatever, and you talk to them, do you document that you've talked to them about it?
I'm going to now.
All of that needs to be documented.
In today's world, unfortunately, that's what we gotta do, because otherwise they're just gonna say,
Yep.
don't know nothing about it.
I didn't do that, or I
And
didn't.
especially with your dealing with the union, you've gotta have your documentation.
That's where a lot of this is coming from, when that night of that meeting opened up my eyes a lot on what you can and can't do, and then it's like, they have all the rules, well, we gotta have it all documented. And I talked to a couple former employees about it, and they says, unless you document it, you can't do nothing with it. So we gotta have a policy in place
You
to
gotta
document
document and
it.
enforce.
So I would just like to see
Is
that.
that policy the same as a memo? Or could it be?
I would look at it very similar, because And we do some stuff through memos, because policies, the union has a chance to review policy. So we do some stuff through memos.
I would just like to see us proceed with that before it just gets way out of hand.
It's, yeah, continues.
I mean, I don't know, apparently, we can smoke a cigarette and use a chainsaw at the same time in our policy today.
I got one other question. Have you proceeded anywhere with the drainage down by the highway going to the Indian Creek? Have you talked to the state or anything?
Yeah. Didn't get very far on any of that stuff as far as the state goes. We talked with the state. They have said that they have opened that tile that's there. The tile was free flowing, and that as far as their participation in draining that area, they thought that they have their tile there that drains what they need to, and they would look to this to be a city/private issue with the folks who are filling in that area, and then just folks who would be adding additional water.
So, are we one of them folks that's adding additional water when we reroute the campground stuff?
Absolutely.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn? So moved. Second?
Second.
Meeting adjourned.
Was that too long?
All right, thanks everybody.
Yep.